Christian Bale actually gets to be British for once. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. Today I'm going to be talking about the 2019 sports drama Ford v Ferrari, or as it's known in the UK, Le Mans 66. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All of my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Ford v Ferrari stars Matt Damon, Christian Bale, and Tracy Letts, and was directed by James Mangold. It tells the real-life story of the Ford team, led by Carroll Shelby, played by Matt Damon, and driver Ken Miles, played by Christian Bale, as they try to design and build a Ford race car capable of beating Ferrari at the 1966 24 Hours of Le Mans race. I want to start off this review by giving you a little insight into how I approach this movie. I'm not a big car person. I've known a few people over the years who really are, so I can appreciate it, but cars have always been more of a tool than a passion for me. As a result, my knowledge of cars and historical events related to them is pretty limited. So why am I telling you this? Well, I wanted to frame this review to give you some perspective on where I'm coming from, so you can gauge how that compares to where you're coming from. So I'm somebody who's not all that interested in cars or racing and knew nothing about this story. I recognize the names of a few of the key players, Shelby, Iacocca, but didn't know anything about them or the roles that they played in this particular story. So although the events of the 1966 Le Mans have been known to people in car circles for more than 50 years, I had no idea what was going to happen. That unknown aspect of the story worked to make this a truly compelling movie for me. I really don't know how I would have felt about this one had I known the race results or any of the history leading up to the race. I imagine big fans of cars or racing will love seeing it play out on screen despite knowing the outcome. But for me, I'm glad I didn't know anything about it going in. Competitions, and especially underdog stories, are just so much more exciting when you don't already know how they're going to end. But I will say, though, that mystery alone isn't enough to make a good racing movie, or any kind of sports movie for that matter. It needs to be about more than just the climactic final race, and Ford v Ferrari has that. So this is a film that will still work even if you already know the story. A big factor that really contributes to that is the quality of the performances, especially from Matt Damon and Christian Bale. Again, I don't know anything about the real Shelby or Miles, so I can't speak to how close the performances were to reality, but I can say that these characters felt real. They felt lived in. You had a sense of history. They didn't feel like they just appeared in time at the moment the movie started. Individually, their performances were really solid. Damon as the smooth-talking legend struggling to find a middle ground between two very different approaches to racing, and Bale in a rare role where he's actually able to use his natural accent, as the hot-headed but incredibly skilled mechanic and racer. But it's when these two characters are together that they're at their best. They're so different, but complement each other extremely well, and the history and friendship between the two really shines through. Having a believable set of characters to provide the human backbone of a story like this is important, but let's face it, you went to a racing movie to see some racing. Well, let me tell you, this movie does not disappoint. Now remember, I'm not a big car or racing person. When it comes to sporting events, I really can't think of anything that's much more dull than watching cars drive around in circles. Car races in movies are obviously a bit more exciting than what we see on TV, but still, there's only so much you can do with it. Only so many shots of cars speeding past the camera. Only so long you can watch before starting to tune out, right? Wrong. I could have watched another 2 hours of racing in this movie. Seriously, if they had filmed all 24 hours of the Le Mans in this style, I would watch it. This movie doesn't use the same 2 or 3 camera angles of the cars that you see in almost every other racing movie. There are shots during these racing sequences I've never seen before. More often than not, you're right in the car with them, and it makes for some incredibly exciting sequences. The visuals and cinematography during the racing portions of this film are fantastic, but I'd be remiss not to mention how good this movie looks when they're out of the cars too. Ford v Ferrari is a period piece, so it's got that 60s aesthetic we've come to expect from a movie like this. But it's also full of these wonderful and subtle shots that I think might go under people's radar, especially when compared to the action-intensive racing scenes. There was one shot that really stood out to me as exceptionally well done. It comes about halfway through the movie, and Miles is working on a car alone at night. He's in a hangar at an airstrip, and he's surrounded by other cars, works in progress. And as he works, he's listening to a race on the radio. We hear the announcers and the sounds of cars speeding around a track. And at that moment, a plane turns out of another hangar, casting a lot of light into the hangar that Miles is working in, which puts all these shadows up on the wall from the cars around him. And as that plane turns, it gives the illusion that these shadows are moving like the cars in the race he's listening to are. It's a really quick moment, but this movie is full of little things like that that really help to raise this one a bit higher than other similar movies. I am definitely not the target audience for this movie. I don't really like or know cars. I'm not a fan of racing. I didn't know any of these people or any of these events that happened. I'm not the person who watches the trailer for a racing movie and says, yeah, that's something I've got to go see. This movie and this subject matter did not entice me one bit. Yet, from the opening scene of this movie, I was engrossed and really invested in the story. I'm sure I didn't get quite the same thing out of this film as somebody who's really into cars did, but I still got something out of it. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pro number one has definitely got to be the racing sequences. I really can't say enough about them. Again, I couldn't care less about car racing, and I've seen so many movies either about racing or featuring races, and they almost all do the same things. They use the same few shots over and over again. The car whizzes past the camera, close up of the driver's face, wide overhead shot of all the cars, back to our hero car, looking in through the driver's side window at our driver. Those shots can be done really well, and there are certainly exciting races from other movies that utilize them, but Ford v Ferrari is distinctively different when it comes to filming and editing these racing sequences. Of course, it has some of these shots I was just talking about, but it also has a ton of shots from within the car. This gives us unique angles of the driver and a view of everything that goes on inside during a race. But I think more importantly, it physically puts us inside the car. We're either in the passenger seat or getting direct driver's point of view shots, and it just brings this whole new level of excitement. The second pro has to be the performances, most notably Matt Damon and Christian Bale as Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles respectively. These are both high caliber actors, so we expect good performances from them. And that's what we get, good performances. Neither of them are at the absolute top of their game here, and these aren't going to be viewed as classic, timeless roles for either of them, but I think that's part of why they work so well here. They just feel like regular guys. Regular guys who built and drove cars that could go 200 miles an hour, but regular guys nonetheless. They felt real. They both had struggles beyond the track, and had this believable friendship and history that can only come across if the actors have good chemistry together. On the con side, the only issue I really had was the thin family relationships. We're introduced to Ken Miles' wife and son fairly early in the movie, and both make appearances throughout the film, but they feel really tacked onto the story, and other than maybe one decent emotional moment, have no real purpose in the movie. I understand the decision to include them, right? They could provide some emotional heft and be a counterbalance to Miles' time racing. And that is how they use the characters, or at least how they attempt to use them. But there's just not enough there. The characters are a bit underdeveloped, and the relationships between them and Miles feel paper thin. Maybe that's how it really was with his family, but even if that's the case, it didn't add anything to the story or his own character development beyond a few superficial moments. I'm gonna give Ford v Ferrari 3.5 out of 5 paws. I went into this movie with fairly low interest and came out pleasantly surprised. It's got some great cinematography and racing scenes, but ultimately still focuses on a topic I'm not particularly interested in. I would recommend Ford v Ferrari to two types of people. The first, and probably most obvious, is to fans of cars and racing. If you know about these cars and these people and these races, then you're gonna enjoy this. Even if you know the eventual outcome, you get to see the whole lead up. You get to watch the design and testing of the GT40, and there's tons of car talk that's sure to please any motorhead. But this isn't just for car and racing enthusiasts. Anybody who's a fan of underdog stories is gonna like this too. It's got some technical stuff and obviously focuses on a car story, but this is a surprisingly accessible movie that even somebody who's not into cars will enjoy. If you liked Ford v Ferrari, I would recommend Rush. It's another period racing film with some very intense race sequences that focuses on a real-life rivalry, only this time it's between two drivers rather than two car manufacturers. If you want some more Le Mans action and don't mind an older fictional story, you might want to check out Steve McQueen in Le Mans. It's set during the 24 hours of Le Mans and also features a rivalry with Ferrari. If you liked the underdog story and the behind-the-scenes crafting and build-up to the climactic event, I'd suggest Moneyball. It's about baseball rather than racing, but it's a really well-done film based on a true story that should be interesting even if you're not big into baseball. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Ford v Ferrari? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite racing movie? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.